Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another broadcast from Sebastian and Dustin, our experts. And today we're going to cover all the demi colors that Artego offers. So, ready to go, guys.
Perfect.
Everyone.
So do you want me to go over you up to, and then you'll take over for Beauty Fusion, and then I'll talk about some of its color options?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. So first we'll just go over, you up to. You up to is one of our original demi um, permanents. They call it semi, but nowadays, of course, I've had some people really have some confusion with that because most companies are now calling like their direct dyes their semis, which we used to call long-lasting temporaries. And they're advertising, and a lot of the cosmetology books are saying that a true semi has no developer. So you will see on the bottle it says semi-permanent, but a lot of people are categorizing this as a demi as well. But it does have a couple of it has a way to make it a hybrid, more or less, is what I kind of call it, just to make it clear that it can lighten. And of course, a demi doesn't lighten. So just want to make sure you understand that. There's some great toners in here. This actually happens to be one of them. 9.12 is a beautiful toner. Level 11 silver is a great color for toning. You're trying to control warmth. There's a lot of shades that are beautiful. This is a great line to refresh mid shaft and ends to the It's Color. And if you're not familiar, if you have an It's Color swatch book, you actually have a You Up To swatch book. When you open up that swatch book and you look at those swatches, if there is a pink dot with the swatch, that means it comes in You Up To. The black dot means it comes in Its Color. There are only very few colors that only come in You Up To, but there are a few like level 11 silver and level 6 slate. Those only come in You Up To, and you'll notice they only have a pink dot next to them. So you do have a swatch book in hand if you're using Its Color, probably. You'll notice we don't have a huge array of colors in this line, but you have plenty to help you refresh those mid shaft and ends after you touch up the new growth with Its Color. There are two energizers with this line. One of them is the 1.8 energizer. That energizer is going to give you deposit, and it really is not meant to lift. The only place I will make sure you understand, and this can be beautiful, and you may love the results from it. I mean, when people love You Up To, they really do love it. But you need to know with that 1.8, if you put that on somebody's hair that, let's say they're highlighted and their natural hair between the highlights, you put that on over everything to tone those highlights, it can softly lift just barely with that 1.8 energizer. It will still possibly lift their natural shade a little bit. So if you're looking for something that absolutely doesn't create any kind of lift at all, for that natural virgin hair in between, you're probably going to look more to the Beauty Fusion line, um, but just simply because it will lift a little bit. But of course, if you're controlling warmth, um, and you're using one of the shades that is an ash or a violet base to control that yellow, when it does break just that tiny, tiny bit of base, it's going to control it and not look like much of a base break at all. And it doesn't happen across the board. It's mostly on those people that just lift, those ones that if you look at them really hard, they get lighter. Those are the ones that might happen with. So it's not across the board. And like I said, it just barely, barely does it in the other cases, and it's beautiful, softens the color, and it's not so much that you're exposing a lot of warmth or anything like that. So I don't want you to be afraid of it. I just want you to know what to expect. When you mix this with the 3 energizer, you get up to a level of lift. And as long as the client has 75% gray or less, you can get full gray coverage. So you get a really nice gray coverage with it. One of the other things I love about this line is if I had a client who scheduled and nobody really realized they wanted a complete tint back, so they're bleached, and they wanted to go darker, and you really need to fill their hair. If you don't have time to fill their hair, this color has kind of a built-in filler in it. So if you're needing to go back 2 shades darker or 3 shades darker and you just don't have time to do the proper procedure and get that filler in the hair, this would be a great way to give that client what they want. It may not hold as long until the next go round because, of course, you didn't fill the hair, but it will definitely turn a nice shade. It has the ability to do that without having it go muddy or shallow or anything like that. Um,
Hmm.
this line mixes 1 to 2. So you're mixing it 1 part color to 2 parts energizer. So that would be either with the 1.8 energizer or the 3 energizer. 1.8 energizer is 5 volume and the 3 energizer is 10 volume. I've had clients mix it with regular developer, and that's breaking the rules, of course, but it does work. It stays very thin. The energizers have special conditioners and thickeners in it so that this oil-based color turns to a nice consistency for your brush and bowl. But it will still, of course, oxidize with a regular 5 or 10 volume in place of that. But again, it's harder to work with because it stays much runnier. But so far, everyone who's ever done it that way says it still oxidizes and works fine. So, just in case, just so you know that. Or if you're putting it in a bottle, you might want to try it with that because it's going to keep it thin. So that's pretty much you up to. Any questions for you up to before we move on to beauty fusion?
Not yet. Nobody's put anything in the chat.
It's an early morning.
I only had 2 cups of coffee. I'll vouch for that. I usually need 3.
Oh, well, one other thing just to get across this line does have a low amount of MEA as the alkalizer in it. So it does stay, it's very low amount. So it stays alkaline the whole time it's processing. So this is one of the reasons too, Annie and I talked about this last time. You can mix it with your its color and you'll get even more gray coverage sometimes. The reason for that is with the its color being ammonia, you have that stronger alkalinity at the beginning, but it drops off as it dissipates out of the color. Well, this stays, it's lower, much lower amount, but it stays across the board. So when that its color dissipates down, you're keeping a little more alkalinity a little longer than normal. So it does help if you wanted to mix it in, you do get a different kind of gray coverage by mixing it to its color. So and it can be mixed in with its color, no problem.
And we've also added its color to U of 2
Yep.
to make it last longer, more like a permanent color. So we go both ways.
Yep, we can do everything.
Okay, so beauty fusion. I know it can be very confusing to everyone, so I'm just going to tell you what works for me and explain it the best that I can. And if there's questions that you guys might have, you can put them in the chat box. Or if there's things that come up, you guys can get my email or my phone number to text me from the office. So the ways that I like to use beauty fusion as a demi is the ones with 3 dots, and there's quite a few. I believe there's 32, correct, Sebastian? 32.
I don't know the number exactly, but there,
Okay.
yeah.
So basically, any of the level 12, 11, or 10 shades with 3 dots you can use, and they have these 3 dots. I don't know if you can see.
Yep.
Um, are amazing to use as an acidic toner with 5 volume, and they will not lift like the U up 2. There will be no shift in the base whatsoever. So my favorites would be 12-0, 12-1-3, 12-1, 12-2, 12-3, 11-2-1, 10-3-2-1, and 8-2-8-3. And those are pretty much the 7 colors that I will use with 5 volume as an acidic toner. And I can give you guys some formulas that I really like with those. Beyond that, I almost always use the Demi Plus formula, which is 10% of booster 1 added into your formula, because I feel like it gives you a little bit more tonal control and it doesn't get the progressive deposit that you will get if you just mix it with 5 volume. So to replace kind of like Shades EQ for your color balancing formulas. If you're using a 6N on the regrowth, I found that if you use 3 parts clear, 1 part 6N and 10% booster with 5 volume, you can apply that and let it sit for the entire, 20, 25 minutes on the ends and get an even balanced result without it over depositing. I also like Beauty Fusion for like great coverage, and I do feel like you get a good 50 to 60% full coverage with the Demi Plus formula and 5 volume if you leave it on like a full 30 minutes. And it's really nice because you can achieve a pretty cool color without exposing a lot of underlying warmth, which is definitely a plus for those clients that want to be cooler without a warmer end result that you might get with using regular permanent color or U up to. Let me see. The other things that I like to use Beauty Fusion for is root smudges. Uh, and I really like to use 9-1 with the booster and 5 volume for like 5 minutes if you just want to like softly break the base and kind of soften that root, but still keep someone really, really, really blonde. Another good formula is 7-0 and 7-1 to kind of give more of like a root shadow. And I'll leave that on about 10 minutes and kind of comb it through and then usually apply like a 12-1 with 5 volume on the ends and kind of melt them together. And that's a really good, root shadow, gloss combination for blondes.
With the 9.1 you're using as a base break, what amount of booster and what developer are you using when you do it?
Depending on if they have fine hair or coarser hair, I'll usually use still 10% booster because I want it to be soft and 5 volume or sometimes 13, and it's a very slight shift. So if you're really looking for a base break, there's other formulas that I might say work better. But I just feel like on those people that are like a level 6 and you're doing those super heavy back-to-back foils, trying to get them as blonde as possible, it just softens that regrowth by slightly maybe budging that line, but also adding just that tiny little bit of depth so you have a little bit of a better grow out,
Yep.
you know a little bit more seamless, you
Yep.
know, if there is such a thing when you're that heavily, you know. And I do love Beauty Fusion for color balancing, but I will have to say that you have to add booster in. And I know that's controversial to a lot of people because this is an alkalizer that is ammonia. But if you don't, I feel like you don't have the control because Beauty Fusion becomes very progressive.
Yep.
So I would not recommend using it as a color balancing product without using booster in it, unless you want to stand there and watch it. And I know when I have done it, I've done my regrowth application, shampooed them out, and at the bowl, applied my gloss and sat there and watched it because it usually takes about 5 minutes. It's
Yeah.
definitely something that you want to, you know, put on and walk away from because you will have problems.
My clients that use it successfully do the same as what you said. They put it on as a gloss at the bowl, and most of them are only leaving it 2 to maybe 5 minutes. And it works perfectly for that. But yeah, it's not one that you typically are going to brush it all over section by section and let it process or walk away by any means.
Yeah. I'll have to say the only exception is if I'm color balancing and I want to use a demi. If they're going copper or very vibrant red, I tend to kind of go to U up to just because I feel like the coppers are more intense and have a little bit more kick than like 744 and Beauty
Yeah.
Fusion. Um,
Yeah,
That's
definitely if you're going for that brightness, right?
Yeah, like if I have somebody that wants to be really, really bright copper, I just tend to go with like 740 U
Yeah.
up, to
Yeah.
get that extra kick because I find that for whatever reason in beauty fusion, the coppers are just very translucent and maybe a little lighter than they should be, level wise. They're probably the only ones that I feel like are maybe a little off. I feel like maybe they're a level to a level and a half lighter than, you know, the level
Then the
in between.
swatch.
Yeah. And they're the only ones that I feel like aren't on target. I feel like 7.4 is more like an 8.5, 4.4. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but
Yeah, I honestly probably do use its color and you up to a lot more for coppers still because I'm so comfortable with them.
uh-huh.
So I'm probably not well versed enough with the 4.4s to feel, I've used them and loved them and thought they were beautiful colors, but for my clients that had the brighter hair types, of course I've used also you up to in its color probably more.
Yeah. And typically if I'm going for copper red, that's where I go as
Yeah.
well. Right away is its color and you up to.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Um,
There's a question if maybe you could post some of these formulas later
I can do
because
that.
they're saying they can't write it down fast enough.
Yeah. And I have a couple low light formulas. So maybe is what I can do is I can just email them to you,
Okay.
Kenny, and then we can send them out if people want them.
Yeah,
And
I'll put them on our Facebook page and I'll share them with Sebastian. He can
Okay.
put it on his Share the
yeah.
Knowledge, and I'll put it on the Artego USA official.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Okay.
That'll be good.
It looks like we have
Yeah, here's a long question. Good morning to all. I'm not currently using any Artego. Well, we got to change that, Linda. Okay. But she's curious. All right. Could you please give the foundational information to each of these different lines to help me and any other newbies understand and distinguish them from each other, and not only great formulation?
So we'll go back to you up to and then work through it. So you up to is a demi-permanent line more or less. Mixes with 1.8 energizer. If you're using it as just deposit only and you don't want any lift from it, you're going to mix it with that 1.8 energizer, and it's 1 part color to 2 parts developer. When you mix the same bottle of color with the 3 energizer that goes with this system, it gives you up to a level of lift and can cover gray if the client's hair is 75% gray or less. So it's a really versatile demi-permanent hybrid line that can do multiple things. Its color, of course, is our permanent line. I'm going to talk about this in a minute after I let Dustin talk about Beauty Fusion. But the its color is permanent, but I've started working with some techniques and I've worked out how to make it demi-permanent and how to make it hybrid. And it works really, really well. We used it in our class this weekend. It's my first class I ever really launched it in, and it worked out great. So we'll talk about that. So our lines are also versatile. You can kind of get what you want from all the lines because Artego does a very good job of giving you the ability to change the chemistry a bit. Where many color lines only let you choose a different color and change the pigments. We kind of give you a way to manipulate the alkalinity, manipulate your developer, and you can get a lot of results from each line. So a lot of times people carry one line and use it for everything, or some salons like to carry all of it, have lots of choice. And then Dustin can tell you about Beauty Fusion.
You should add to what you said earlier, if they missed it, that the its color and the U up to do match up to each other pretty
Oh,
well, and they're
yeah,
on the same swatch book.
yeah, correct.
Okay, so here's the beauty, I guess, in Beauty Fusion is this is your bottle of color and there's no alkalizer in it whatsoever. This is just pigment and color and an oil base. So with Beauty Fusion, you then have the option to use it with 5 volume to make it an acidic demi color. Might I add, it's progressive. not like Shades EQ. It will continue to work. The longer you leave it on, the darker it will get. So that is one thing to note. Also, in saying that, the great thing about it is like when you go to gloss someone with like your level 12s, they don't fade out like Shades EQ. Uh, I feel like my toners hold the entire 6 weeks, which is something I can't say for any other color line that I've used, which for a colorist is awesome. You don't have clients using a ton of purple shampoo and coming in with purple hair for their next appointment because they didn't need it. So also with Beauty Fusion, they have a few different formulas. So there's Demi Plus, which then you can use with 5 or 13 volume, which you add a small amount of a booster to. The boosters are alkalizer in a tube. There's two boosters, booster 1 and booster 2. Booster 1 is for levels 1 through 6, and booster 2 is for levels 7 through 12. Um, the difference between them is there's more alkalinity in booster 2 for those higher levels. I will say from my personal experience, I only use booster 1 when doing a demi because I don't see the need in having a higher alkalinity in any of the colors when making a demi-permanent color. Only when doing, a permanent shade do I feel like you need the higher alkalinity. So always, in my opinion, when doing a demi, I use booster 1 for all of it, levels 1 through 12. That's just, my rule of thumb. When doing permanent, I do use, 1 through 6 booster 1 and 7 through 12 booster 2. And I kind of get that question always. What happens if you're mixing a 6 and a 7? And I just kind of base that on, well, I guess you could split half and half, or, I just kind of always go on, are you lifting more or are you depositing more? Because if you're lifting more, then you're going to want a higher alkalinity. So use your booster 2. And that kind of is the lovely thing about Beauty Fusion is there's a lot of room to play with it. There's recommended amounts of booster, to make it a demi, it's 10%, to make it a permanent, it's 20%, and to make it a high lift is 30. And I will have to say that there is times where, I feel like if you're doing a level 2, you don't need 20% of a booster to make a permanent level 2. And so you can make that choice as a colorist to use less. Or if someone's more resistant, you can add, some more booster to up your alkalinity to get better gray coverage. I will say I wouldn't go over the 30% because it is too alkaline and aggressive for the scalp. I know I've done it. Not a good idea. uh, Somebody's asking the difference between booster 1 and booster 2. Uh, the difference in pH is like 9.2 and 10.8, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but every point you go up, it's like 1,000 times higher. So it is a large difference between the two. And it's like any other color line, there's always a higher pH the further up you go in a line as opposed to the lower. I mean, we hope that most lines have calibrated pHs at this point in the ball game, and it's not like Clairol where, everything has an ammonia content of 3 across the board. But
So it's interesting you bringing that up. And this is good information. It's not necessarily for Demi, but
yeah,
specifically. But Marlo and I both were having a lot of people ask when Marlo was, the director of education for Canada. A lot of people were asking the specific ammonia level in its color. So she got in touch with the chemist and got a really interesting answer back that one of the reasons that we don't advertise like a set alkalinity number for its color and probably for in other situations is because Artego actually creates most companies create like level 1 through 4 is this amount of alkalinity, levels 5 through 6 is this amount. Every level it's kind of grouped in a way so that it's a little easier to not you don't have so many different answers for people as far as how much alkalinity is in there. but Artego actually customizes the alkalinity for the actual shade. So if it's a warmer shade and it needs less alkalinity because you're not controlling warmth, or however that may work out with the shade that they're working on, every shade could have a different alkalinity because they keep it as low as possible, but they adjust it for the end result of that actual shade. So it's very hard for us to tell you we can't say its color is always this across the board because literally every level and every tone could have a different alkalinity,
Mhm.
which what I found very interesting. I never had that with any other color line I ever worked with before.
And I know with Beauty Fusion, because it is such a creative line, you really can play with your boosters. I mean, I will have to be honest, I almost always use a booster with it in some capacity, other than with my level 12s. And if I want to make something more demi, I literally will use 5% booster with it instead of the 10%, just to make sure there's no lift. And I know people kind of freak out. Well, you're adding in an alkalizer, you're putting in ammonia. Well, guess what? Shades EQ has an alkalizer in it, it's MEA. If you mix Shades EQ with 20 volume and leave it on for 45 minutes, you will get lift. I work with a hairdresser that only uses Shades EQ. She uses it with 30 volume under the dryer for 25 minutes for gray coverage. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It works for her, so great for her. But let me tell you, she's got a hard line of demarcation and she gets a level and a half of lift. So, the whole, oh, well, there's an out, if it's at all sticking in the hair, there's an alkalizer of some kind. And people get really into, is it MEA or is it ammonia? And the other day I talked to a chemist and, MEA is actually a derivative of ammonia. It's compounded oil made from a component of ammonia. So it's kind of like, either way, you're working with an alkalizing product doing the same thing on the hair,
Yeah.
regardless. One stops, one doesn't. I mean,
And well, I get this a lot too. When they, I think when Shades says acidic demi, what people don't realize, I was told that it starts out alkaline, and as it processes, it becomes more acidic because the alkalinity dies down. So a lot of people try to compare our Beauty Fusion and 5 volume with that Shades EQ because it says it's acidic, but they're not apples and apples. Beauty Fusion with 5 volume and no booster is truly acidic. It never starts alkaline. It
yeah.
never is alkaline. So, and that's why it's progressive. But so the other thing is, I don't necessarily, like you said, I don't use it if I'm trying to do a color change on the hair and it's a virgin hair. That's probably not going to work out so well because the cuticle's tight. There's no alkalizer. If it gets color, it's going to fade back off really quickly. Where it works amazingly well is, like we said, if you're going to refresh ends with it, you do it quickly at the bowl and you watch it. But where I love Beauty Fusion with 5 volume and being acidic and truly acidic, never alkaline, is putting it over hair that's been lightened. That hair's already open. It's been processed with alkalinity. So you don't need any more alkalinity. So I feel like that's where we really shine and where our difference in our acidic um, option with Beauty Fusion is far superior to those other acidic demis because they do start out with alkalinity. And not that, using a little alkalinity in a demi is a big deal, but I feel like if you can get the result and not use any, why not?
Yeah. No, I agree. 100%.
So,
And I will have to say, so Beauty Fusion with a booster is very similar, and I can just tell you product lines like it's very similar to Colorants Plus, very similar to Dia Richesse, it's Color Touch. I'm trying to think of other cream, the Alpha Parf Color Wear Cream, any of those demi creams that are out there that are on the alkaline side of things that stay alkaline. For me, see eclectic. So whenever you're using it with that 5 or 10% booster, that's kind of what you're getting with Beauty Fusion. And,
yep.
that's why you can kind of make up your own rules and use 5% booster or no booster. But I will tell you that if it does not have 3 dots on it, and take this from experience, you have to use booster. Only the colors that have 3 dots can be used with 5 volume. There are theories out there that you can mix 3 dots and 2 dots, and as long as there's 3 dots, it's fine. Absolutely not. Do not do it. It's out of control. Only colors that have the 3 dots on them, like right here, can be used with 5 volume only. Anything with 2 dots has to have an alkalizer in it to work. It needs it to make the pigments couple properly. If it doesn't have it, one of two things will happen. It will either end up black, completely off tone, or do nothing. So, all three of which I will have to say is an undesirable option as a color. Do it. If you want to try it on a swatch, but absolutely do not do it on a person's head.
I still get people that say they do it all the time and have no problem, but I've tested it, and when I've tested it, I've seen it look like it took, and then washed it, and as soon as you washed it, it was gone. I've seen it be an off tone, so I've seen both of those things happen. Mixing a color that was not meant to be one of the gloss formulas with no booster. So I agree.
Well, I will have to tell you, we did it on Beth Minardi, and she mixed it up, and her roots turned black. And we ended up spending, an additional 4 hours correcting her
The
color
color.
class, because it went
Thank,
haywire.
thank
So,
God she told you to do it, right? So you didn't get in trouble.
yeah, thank you. She mixed it. But, I have tried it on my own in the salon, and hey, if it works, have fun. But I will tell you, in my experience and working with a bunch of colorists that use it, none of us have had a good result with it at all.
Doing that, yeah.
It just is very unpredictable. And
Well,
it's also, you don't have the longevity.
yeah.
And when I've talked to the chemist in Italy about it, it's because the pigments don't couple properly without an alkalizer. I mean,
Well, and if it did work fine across the board, why would our company put symbols on our colors of which ones can be used that way?
yeah,
They'd be putting the symbol on everything. So, yeah. All right. So, are you ready? Was that all you had for Beauty
that's
Fusion?
all I have. And then if you want to just go over what you've been doing with its color.
Yep. And it's been really fun. I've been really excited to play around with it. So I talked again in a discussion with Marlo and chemist from Artego. Theoretically, taking its color, which is our permanent color line, and does contain ammonia, um, and mixing it with 3 parts developer could make it more of the alkalinity of a demi. So I played around with that. It made it much too thin for one thing. And what I found was I got splotchy, a little more of a splotchy um, deposit into the hair. So I wasn't crazy about it. Everyone who uses its color should already know about this first. I kind of call it a hybrid, but the first formula that I have on this board is when you use any shade in our color swatch chart with neutro, and neutro comes in a tube just like the rest of the color. It's just called neutral or neutro. The only thing I will tell you of how a lot of people making mistakes when they're ordering and when they're using the color, we have a extra blonding cream neutral. That is high alkalinity. It is not just a clear, it's a clear with higher alkalinity than our regular color. So we're not talking about extra blonding cream neutral. We're talking about neutral. If you look at this box, it'll actually say neutral and then slash neutro or vice versa. Neutral is technically just our color base. It's all the conditioners, all the great components of its color, but with no pigment and no ammonia. So when you mix any shade in that swatch book, in your Its Color swatch book, with half neutro, so half the shade, half neutro, you are cutting the dye load down, and you're also cutting the ammonia in half. So I kind of call that a hybrid color because it's not truly permanent anymore because you've lowered the alkalinity level. It's also still a little higher alkaline than demi, so it's not a true demi-permanent because it will still break base, and all of those things. But what it gives you is an option. Um, if you take a 6, mix it half with neutro, it now made it a 7. So as you can see here, I put a little asterisk. It makes it one shade lighter. So any shade, you mix it with a 9, half neutro, half 9 makes a 10. Here's where a lot of people were having problems. They were doing this when they were out of a color and they were putting it on for gray coverage. Well, I just told you, when you mix the neutro, has no ammonia in it, so you're cutting your ammonia level in half. When you lower your ammonia level, we're already at the lowest ammonia level pretty much of any major manufacturer. When you cut our ammonia level in half, you probably are going to lose gray coverage. So that technique of mixing the neutro to make it a shade lighter works great in every aspect, but I wouldn't necessarily do it when you're going for gray coverage. Because if that gray is resistant and it needs alkalinity, you just cut your alkalinity. So you cut some of that power out. Now it might cover somebody's gray, but I won't say it won't, but what I want to make sure you know is we can't guarantee that it'll cover 100% of all your clients' gray when it's diluted that way. So hopefully everybody understands the neutro and that. What I found was if you mix the neutro half and half, can you see the whole thing at the bottom here? I can't tell. Can you see that whole little?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you mix the shade with the neutro, just like you did before, it made it one level lighter. And then if you do double developer with that, so instead of doing what I was told to, triple the developer, I just went back to doing the neutro, and then I doubled the 5 volume developer, and it works amazingly well. But here's where you have to think when you do this, because you're diluting the level by 1 when you mix this first formula. When I double the developer here, I'm diluting the level again. So it's making the level 2 shades lighter than whatever the color you're choosing. For example, if I took a 6N and neutro, and then I put in 2 parts 5 volume, I just made an 8 in demi. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. We did this in our class in New York. It was the first time I ever used it in a class. I've been testing it out. I will say I've used it successfully as toners, beautiful toners. I've used it to refresh mid shaft and ends. Works great for all of those things. The only thing I haven't started testing it on is to see what kind of gray coverage I can get with it, if I do get gray coverage at all, or if I don't. So I won't tell you that it works for doing a full color change yet, but it definitely works for toners and refreshing mid shaft and ends, and gives you a way to make a demi. If you don't have our U up to or our Beauty Fusion line, you have an option to make that refreshing and a true demi. It lowers the alkalinity to a normal demi level. So we actually did a swatch project in our class this weekend where we took the 7s and we mixed them this way. So all the level 7s, mixed them with half neutro, and then doubled the 5 volume with them. And they were beautiful. Like 7S as a toner is gorgeous. It's like probably one of my favorite toners now, based on what we got in class this past weekend in New York, or last week. And then we even some shades that I didn't expect. We did some of the M's, or the like 7.7. Turns out this beautiful warm, kind of a blonde toner worked out great. And then again, refreshing the mid shaft and ends. So you just have to remember, if you're mixing a 9 or a 10, you're going to get a pastel. You're going to get like a level 11 or 12 pastel toner out of that. If you're mixing a 7 or an 8, you're going to get a 9 or a 10 toner, because you're getting 2 levels lighter when you mix it this way. But it works great. I'm really liking it and digging it, and it's something fun to try out with your It's color. And like I said, if you don't carry the other lines, or let's say you're out of something, you might have an option in It's color to tone that hair with or refresh the ends with, and not have to have a hard time being, missing something if it's out of stock or if you just don't have those lines in stock.
Sebastian, what is the timing?
So I've been doing 20 minutes just like any demi, 15 to 20 minutes and getting really great results.
Somebody else asked how you make the 5 volume. Are you doing the 0 volume and
Yeah.
the
So,
half with the 10?
and it's funny, you teach classes and you think you came up with things that are just mind-blowingly amazing. And then at the end of class, people are like, "Oh my gosh, one of the best things I learned in class is I tell people we have nice open our developer bottles have a nice wide opening at the top instead of the really tight little normal openings. So when you use up a bottle of whatever color, whatever developer it is, 20 volume or 10 volume or whatever, I just keep that bottle, set it on a scale, and then you buy our 0 volume and our 10 volume, and you can weigh those into a bottle.
Oh,
And that way you're making your own bottle of 5 volume because it's a lot more trouble when you're in the back and you're in a hurry. You don't want to pull out 2 developers. You want to just pull out one. So when you have downtime or you have an assistant, let them weigh that in and then just mark out the volume and put a 5 volume on it for our developer. I taught that in the class, and I had more comments that was like the best thing that they learned. I was like,
yeah, that's
wait a
cool.
second.
I think it's very cool.
I guess we all get busy and don't think about little things that are easy like that, but definitely preparing your 5 volume ahead of time makes it a lot easier. But the 0 volume in our O2 developers, which is the developer that goes with its color, um, and some of our bleaches, the 0 volume in that is made to cut the other developers, but mainly half 10, half 0 makes a 5 volume. The really nice thing is if you have that 0 volume in stock, and let's say you ran out of 20 volume, half 40, half 0, you just made 20. So that 0 volume gives you a lot of options, is why we do it that way instead of with a 5 volume, because that 0 volume gives you kind of all the options you might want.
Mhm.
So it's a great way. But like I said, just pre-mix that so you don't have to. Some people are like, "Oh, I hate having to open 2 developers." Well, you don't have to if you prep and make a bottle of 5 up front.
All right, here's another question going back to the Beauty Fusion. Sarah wants to know if the clear in Beauty Fusion is equal to the neutral in its color.
Do you want to answer this,
You,
Dustin?
Uh, yes, I would have to say it is. I mean, it's a clear shade diluter.
Yeah.
That does not have an alkalizer in it. So yes, I would say it's very much the same as neutral, but they would be used in very different ways. Because I feel like you're truly trying to cut alkalinity in its color with neutral. Um, and with Beauty Fusion, I feel like you're trying to truly cut pigment, not alkalinity, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
And the other thing that makes it slightly different is that the clear in Beauty Fusion has been certified by an independent university in Italy that it literally reconstructs hair. So Neutro gives a beautiful shine and condition and makes the hair feel soft. But the clear, when added to anything else, it has the most red algae in it, and it actually does some reconstruction and repair of the cuticle. So like Dustin said, it will dilute your pigment. But sometimes when I'm doing a toner and I feel like the hair's a little bit sensitized or damaged a slight amount more than I would like, I will, instead of doing like 11-1, I might do 11-1, 9-2 and put some clear in it to dilute it back more or less to an 11-1. But that gives me a little bit of reconstruction. Anytime you add the clear into any formula, you're getting a little reconstruction along with the dilution.
Mhm. I also know that you can add 5 grams of clear into your lighteners to act as a bond builder as well, because of that red algae extract that's in there,
Yeah.
which there will be a bond builder coming out soon.
Recolor.
Is there any other questions or anything else people want to go over? Um, Clear Beauty Fusion uses a treatment used as a diluter only. I would probably use, if I'm doing a clear shine treatment, I would probably definitely pick Beauty Fusion Clear and 5 volume as like a treatment because the reconstructing properties over using Neutro and Clear. I mean, Neutro and 5 volume. I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't you agree,
Yeah.
Sebastian?
I mean, the neutro and you can use neutro and zero volume actually, for a clear gloss. But again, like Dustin said, it doesn't have the reconstruction aspect of it. So if you just want a softening of the hair and a clear gloss, the neutro and zero volume is fine, or 5 volume, either one you could do. But I typically am not going to put 5 volume with it if I'm just looking for the clear conditioning part of it. I'm going to use it with the zero volume. Um, that is the only place you use zero volume by itself. Um, but again, like Dustin said, the clear, I probably would choose that just because I'm giving my client the clear shine and the reconstruction.
And Gina, I would say that no, it doesn't slow down
No,
your
it
life
doesn't.
like other bond builders at all. Um, what else?
Show the chart again, please. Yes.
There's the first part of the chart. I hope you can see all of it. Okay. And the only difference between the upper part, which makes the hybrid, and the lower part is that you're doubling the 5 volume. With the upper part, you're doing equal parts, so it's keeping the alkalinity a little bit higher than demi. But when you double the developer, the 5 volume, you're diluting the alkalinity even more than the neutral by itself. And that's the only difference. You're doubling that 5 volume to make it demi instead of hybrid.
And then just a reminder, next week we'll be doing another Zoom, and I'll be on here with one of my colorists that I work with, Melanie, who switched from Goldwell to Beauty Fusion to kind of go over for all of those Goldwell people, what she learned, tips and tricks for switching over. She was a Goldwell educator for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
She, yeah, it's the first time she's ever switched over to anything, but she's an amazing colorist. And we just thought it would be really good to kind of help answer questions and things that she's found behind the chair, that really helped her, work through
Nice.
challenges and, you know, just things that she's found. So it should be really interesting and a good thing because I know there's a lot of people switching over from Goldwell to Artego.
Yep.
So,
All
um,
right.
what's this question?
I'm trying to teach you.
I'm nervous.
Somebody is a salon in KSA. I don't know what is that, Kansas, and interested in Artego. You can contact us at the office. We'll give you that number. Oh my God. I haven't called it in so long. I
Oh,
can do 515-276-4700. Oh, Saudi Arabia. Oh my
oh,
God, you guys, we cannot sell in Saudi Arabia, but we're
Uh,
glad
but
you're on here with us.
but there is Artego,
there's a
Turkey, and
Your website should have who their
yeah,
distributor
there's a
is, because I
few.
know there was one.
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a few in the Middle East right now that I've seen because I follow them. And then hold on, there's another one. I am in natural focused. I am really interested in the complete line of Artego, but nervous about the.
Nervous about the various lines.
Well, Sarah, if
Sarah,
you,
I will tell you, it's very easy once you get your hands on it.
yeah,
Yep.
and if you have questions, you can contact me or Sebastian. The office has our number. I can even put it in the chat box, mine. And you can text us questions directly, and we're both really good about answering them. Um, and we can kind of help, you work through any challenges you might have or questions. I mean, Artego just in general, I feel like is very natural, and has really good healthy ingredients in it. So, I mean, across the board, I wouldn't really
Yeah.
hesitate with, using it in a more natural focused salon.
And
Especially Beauty Fusion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially Beauty Fusion. Hi, Brent.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Sebastian.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Are there any
Thanks.
workshops? Hold on really quick. Oh boy.
We just did one in Baltimore yesterday. Um, Smell. I don't think Artego smells.
Yeah, I've heard people say that, and I don't think it smells either.
Not at all. So,
I I don't know.
If anything,
Oh,
guys, I'm a little sensitive to smell and I smell a fragrance. I don't smell a bad smell.
yeah.
Maybe an added, like remember Beth used to have cotton blossom as her fragrance that was added. So I would say it's a fragrance.
Yeah.
And and I see level 11 blondes. My favorite 11.21 with 5 volume, and you can add booster or not, works as a great toner for blondes to control that yellow. If you're looking for that, 9.22 is a lot stronger, so I'll use it sometimes as an additive into the 11.21 if you're looking for a lot of control of the gold. And that's in the Beauty Fusion line. Um,
Mhm. And those are my kind of go-to. And I don't use I don't use booster when I'm toning my blondes.
yeah, I
That's
don't typically either.
maybe if I didn't get somebody light enough in a corrective situation, I might add booster in, but like in a foil highlight, no.
Well, because when I'm trying to control that warmth, we don't want to break the base in
Yeah.
any fashion or form, which it doesn't with 5 volume anyway. But
Ammonia may not be enough airflow in my suite.
yeah.
I don't really smell ammonia when I'm mixing it. So I don't know what
I,
to
I
do.
so
have to say, personally, I have sold every line of color known to man. And if you've ever used So Color,
Yeah.
that's an ammonia smell.
yeah,
Yeah,
which
or Redken. I mean,
Yes.
colored gels. I mean, I want to throw up every time I have a stylist in here mix it because
the
it's,
I
only
really
thing
don't think there's a smell to it.
the
yeah, I
and
don't,
there is an aspect that I know that we're a little different than some lines. I don't know what they're coming from, but if you do smell a small amount of ammonia coming from it when you're first mixing it, I know that Artego, we have free ammonia. We don't have an ingredient added to our color to hold the ammonia in because it's healthier for the hair for the ammonia to dissipate. So you
Mhm.
don't really want to hold that alkalinity in that color. So a lot of people, if they smell any amount of ammonia, I don't think of that as being unhealthy. I actually know that that means it's coming out of the color. If there is a small amount of smell, and that means that hair is not going to have the alkalinity on it as long. So I don't know if that helps at all, but having that free ammonia allows it to come out of the color and leaves the hair in healthier shape typically.
In the future, I probably shouldn't say anything, but we do have our recolor coming after the first of the year. That if you're worried about smell, MEA doesn't have a smell.
Yep.
So even though it's an alkalizer, it does mask that.
yeah. I see people asking about in-person education, and I'm trying to work something out where maybe Sebastian and I can do like an in-person class at the warehouse or find a location and do like a 1 day intro to color and do some techniques, but hopefully we'll do something like that, but it won't be till next year.
Yeah. But yeah,
But
I
we
think that'd
should
be
say
fun.
that all of our Zooms, the ones you guys do and the ones that Beth has done, are all on YouTube.
Yep.
So, for anybody new to color, it's a great way to learn. You get new staff, sit them down in front of the computer
They,
and let them watch.
they love YouTube, so they'll
Yep,
love
yep, yep. Every one of them are there.
it.
Okay. Okay, everybody. I think that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you guys.
Thanks.
Great
Thanks,
as
Dustin.
always.
Thanks,
Everyone
Enjoyed
Amy.
have a
doing
great
it.
day. Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.